What if the weakest thing you can do after a breakup is explain yourself? Not because your feelings are fake. Not because they did not hurt you. Not because you have nothing to say. But because the moment you start begging someone to understand your pain, you may unknowingly hand them the map to your weakest places. And in a world where people often pretend to care, pretend to listen, pretend to need closure, while secretly measuring how much power they still have over you, silence becomes more than emotional control. Silence becomes protection. After a breakup, most people think the final message will give them peace. They think one last paragraph will make the other person finally see the truth. They think if they explain it clearly enough, painfully enough, honestly enough, the other person will understand what they destroyed. But here is the brutal truth. Sometimes they already understand. They just do not care enough to respond in the way your pain is hoping for. And by the end of this video, you will understand why Stoic silence is not weakness, not avoidance, not emotional suppression, but one of the most powerful ways to reclaim your dignity when someone walks away from your life. And stay until the end, because there is one mistake most people make when they try to stay silent after a breakup, and that mistake turns their silence from strength into self-torture. Let's talk about it. 1. The urge to speak is usually pain looking for an exit. When a relationship ends, the first instinct is rarely calm. You may tell yourself you just want closure. You may tell yourself you only want to explain your side. You may tell yourself, I just need them to know how badly this hurt me. But if you sit with that urge honestly, you may notice something uncomfortable. Most of the time, the urge to speak is not wisdom. It is pain trying to escape the body. It is the tightness in your chest looking for a door. It is the anger in your throat looking for a target. It is the humiliation of being left, ignored, replaced, misunderstood, or discarded trying to turn itself into a message. You pick up the phone. You open the chat. You type 3 lines, delete them, type 10 more. You imagine them reading it. You imagine them feeling guilty. You imagine them finally saying, I didn't realize how much I hurt you. And for a moment, the fantasy feels like relief. But that relief is dangerous, because it is not built on reality. It is built on the hope that the same person who hurt you will now become the person who heals you. That is where many people lose themselves after a breakup. They do not lose themselves in the breakup itself. They lose themselves in the performance that comes after it. The long message. The repeated explanations. The midnight voice note. The, I know I shouldn't text you, but. The, I just need to say this one last thing. And then another last thing. And another. Marcus Aurelius taught that before any action, we must examine the impulse behind it. Not just what we are doing, but what part of us is doing it. Is this action coming from your values? Or is it coming from the wound? Because there is a difference between speaking from clarity and speaking from emotional flooding. Clarity does not beg. Clarity does not chase. Clarity does not try to force someone to become decent through paragraphs. Pain does. Pain wants relief now. Pain wants the pressure to stop. Pain wants the other person to say the right sentence so your nervous system can finally rest. But Stoicism asks a harder question. What if peace does not come from their response? What if peace comes from no longer needing their response to remain whole? That is the first turning point. Because the moment you understand that your urge to speak is often just suffering looking for somewhere to go, you stop worshiping that urge as truth. You can feel it. You can respect it. You can write it down. But you do not have to obey it. That is where dignity begins. 2. In a fake world, your silence reveals what their words cannot. Modern relationships often end in a strange theater. People say, "I still care about you," while removing you from their future. They say, "You deserve better," while refusing to be better. They say, "I don't want to hurt you," after already doing exactly that. They say, "I need space," when what they really mean is, "I want distance without guilt." This is the Machiavellian layer of modern emotional life. Not because everyone is evil, but because many people have learned how to protect their image while avoiding responsibility. They want to leave clean. They want to be remembered kindly. They want the comfort of believing they are still a good person, even if their actions left you bleeding emotionally. And if you are not careful, your pain becomes part of their performance. Your long message gives them a role to play. Now they can be the calm one, the mature one, the one who says, "I understand you're hurt," the one who replies with cold kindness while you look unstable. This is why silence is powerful. Silence refuses the stage. It does not audition for their sympathy. It does not help them feel important. It does not give them the satisfaction of seeing how deeply their absence has disturbed your center. Silence says something words cannot say. It says, "You mattered. But I will not collapse for your observation." It says, "I am hurt. But I am not available for emotional display." It says, "You may have ended the relationship, but you do not get to manage the meaning of my pain." And that is why genuine silence can feel terrifying to the person who expected you to chase. Because some people do not just leave you. They leave expecting proof that they still have power. They expect the message, the reaction, the emotional spill, the anger, the pleading, the attempt to negotiate. And when it does not come, something shifts. Not because you are playing a game. Not because you are trying to manipulate them. But because your silence removes access. And access is what many people mistake for love. Epictetus warned that speech, when undisciplined, often reveals more than it communicates. The person who says everything they feel is not always being honest. Sometimes they are simply unguarded. And after a breakup, being unguarded with the wrong person can become emotional self-betrayal. Not every feeling deserves an audience. Not every wound deserves a witness. Not every person who caused your pain deserves to receive the full report of what they damaged. Some information belongs to your healing, not their inbox. That is what silence protects. 3. Stoic silence is not pretending you are fine. But let's be very clear. Stoic silence is not acting like you feel nothing. It is not posting gym videos pretending you are unbothered. It is not uploading mysterious quotes so they know you are moving on. It is not ignoring your own grief and calling it strength. It is not swallowing your emotions until they rot inside you. That is not Stoicism. That is avoidance wearing a Roman helmet. Real Stoic silence is different. Real Stoic silence says, "I feel this fully. But I will not let this feeling control my behavior." That is the difference between suppression and mastery. Suppression says, "I am not hurt." Mastery says, "I am hurt, and I will not let hurt make decisions for me." Suppression says, "I do not care." Mastery says, "I cared deeply, and now I must care for myself with the same seriousness." Suppression says, "I am above this." Mastery says, "I am inside this pain, but I refuse to become smaller because of it." There is a quiet honesty in that. And many people never reach it because they are too busy trying to look powerful. They want the other person to think they are fine. They want mutual friends to think they are winning. They want social media to believe they are healed. But StoicCraft is not about looking strong. It is about becoming hard to destabilize when no one is watching. That happens in private. It happens when you wake up and instinctively check your phone, then remember there is no message. It happens when you drive past a place you both used to go, and your chest tightens. It happens when a song comes on, and suddenly you are back in a memory you thought you had buried. It happens when you see their name online, or worse, see them acting normal while you are still trying to breathe through the damage. That is where Stoicism becomes real. Not in quotes. Not in aesthetics. Not in pretending to be made of stone. But in the moment where pain rises, and you do not turn it into self-destruction. Marcus Aurelius did not teach emotional numbness. He taught emotional command. Feel everything. But choose deliberately. That is the line. You can miss them and still not text them. You can love them and still not return to disrespect. You can grieve what was real and still refuse to chase what is gone. That is not coldness. That is self-respect with a pulse. 4. The message you want to send is usually not for them. Here is something painful but necessary. The message you want to send after a breakup may not truly be for the other person. It may be for the version of you that still wants to be chosen. That version of you is exhausted. It wants proof that the relationship meant something. It wants proof that your love was not wasted. It wants proof that you were not easy to leave. So it writes. It writes to be seen. It writes to be validated. It writes to turn abandonment into conversation. But sometimes the person you are writing to has already emotionally left the room. They may read your message. They may even reply. But they are not carrying it the way you hope they will. You send them your pain like a sacred document. They receive it like information. That gap can destroy you. Because you think you are creating understanding. But what you may actually be creating is exposure. You are showing them exactly where the knife went in. You are showing them which words still control you. You are showing them how much emotional access they still have after they have already chosen distance. And once you see that clearly, silence stops feeling like punishment. It becomes containment. You are not denying the message. You are redirecting it. Write it. But do not send it. Write the ugly version. Write the desperate version. Write the version where you say everything you wish they understood. Write the accusation. Write the grief. Write the truth. But put it somewhere safe. A journal. A note on your phone. A document no one sees. A voice memo you delete later. Give the feeling a place to land that does not make the wrong person its owner. This is not weakness. This is emotional discipline. Because willpower alone is not enough. If you simply say, I will not text them, but you give the feeling nowhere to go, the pressure will eventually find a crack. That is why people break silence on day 3. Or day 7. Or after one glass of whiskey. Or after seeing one photo. Or after convincing themselves, I'm calm now, when they are not calm, they are just tired of holding it. So do not just hold silence. Build a system around it. When the message rises, write it somewhere else. When the urge hits, walk. When the memory attacks, breathe before touching the phone. When loneliness starts rewriting history, remind yourself why the ending happened. Do not let your nervous system become your author. You are not here to win a breakup. You are here to not abandon yourself in the aftermath. 5. The hardest days are not the first days. The first day after a breakup can be strangely powerful. You are hurt, yes. But there is also adrenaline. There is shock. There is pride. There is that first clean decision, I will not chase. You may even feel strong. But day 2 is different. Day 3 is different. The silence starts getting louder. The things unsaid begin to gather weight. Your mind starts writing speeches while you are brushing your teeth. You imagine what you would say if they reached out. You imagine what they are doing. You imagine whether they miss you. You imagine whether they are relieved. And this is where most people fall. Not because they are weak. Because no one told them that silence has withdrawal symptoms. When someone has been your emotional habit, losing them does not just hurt your heart. It disrupts your routine, your nervous system, your sense of identity. You are not only missing the person. You are missing the version of yourself that existed around them. The morning text. The inside jokes. The plans. The little updates. The feeling that someone was there. Even if the relationship was unhealthy, the absence can still feel brutal. That is why your mind starts negotiating. Maybe I should just check in. Maybe enough time has passed. Maybe they think I don't care. Maybe I need closure. Maybe I should show maturity. Be careful. Sometimes, closure is just desire wearing respectable clothing. Sometimes, maturity is just fear of being forgotten. Sometimes, one last conversation is just the wounded self looking for another hit of connection. This is why Stoic silence must be practiced daily, not declared once. Each day, you return to the same question. What kind of person am I becoming through this pain? Am I becoming someone who needs to be answered in order to be stable? Or someone who can remain intact even when someone else withholds explanation? Am I becoming someone who reacts every time loneliness speaks? Or someone who can sit with loneliness without letting it choose my actions? This is where the real strength is built. Not in blocking them dramatically. Not in acting superior. Not in pretending you are over it. But in surviving the quiet moments where no one applauds your restraint. That is the invisible work. And invisible work is usually the work that changes you. 6. If they come back, do not confuse contact with change. Now we need to talk about something important. Sometimes silence works in a way you did not expect. They reach out. Maybe after a few days. Maybe after a few weeks. Maybe when they realize you are not chasing. Maybe when your absence starts disturbing the story they told themselves. And when that message arrives, your body may react before your wisdom does. Your heart jumps. Your mind starts moving fast. A part of you feels chosen again. A part of you wants to reply instantly. A part of you wants to believe they finally understand. Slow down. Contact is not the same as change. A message is not accountability. A "hey" is not repair. An "I miss you" is not maturity. A "how have you been" is not proof that they are ready to meet you differently. This is where many people lose all the strength their silence was building. They mistake the return of attention for the return of love. But attention can be selfish. Some people come back not because they have grown, but because your silence injured their control. They were comfortable when you were reaching. They knew where you stood. They knew they could leave and still be emotionally fed by your reaction. But when you stop feeding the dynamic, they feel the loss of access. And they may come back to restore the old pattern, not to build something new. So the question is not, are they back? The question is, what are they bringing? Are they bringing honesty? Are they bringing accountability? Are they naming what happened clearly? Are they showing a real understanding of the pattern, not just discomfort with the consequence? Or are they only bringing nostalgia, loneliness, curiosity, a vague message to test if the door is still open? The Stoic man does not respond from hunger. He responds from ground. If you engage, engage slowly. Engage clearly. Engage without surrendering the self you built in their absence. You can be warm without being available. You can be respectful without reopening the door. You can listen without handing them your center again. This is real power. Not revenge. Not coldness. Not emotional games. Power is being able to receive the message you once prayed for and still ask, is this good for the person I am becoming? That question will save you from returning to places your pain has already outgrown. 7. Silence is not about making them regret losing you. Many videos will tell you silence is powerful because it makes them miss you. Because it makes them wonder. Because it shifts the dynamic. Because it makes you look high value. Because it makes them realize what they lost. There may be some truth in that. But that is not the deepest reason silence matters. If your silence is only a strategy to control their reaction, you are still emotionally attached to their response. You are still performing. You are still checking whether the silence is working. You are still measuring your worth by whether they come back, watch your stories, ask about you, or regret leaving. That is not freedom. That is attachment wearing a stronger costume. True Stoic silence is not about making them suffer. It is about ending the habit of making your healing depend on their awareness. Because what if they never regret it? What if they move on quickly? What if they tell the story in a way that makes you look like the problem? What if they never give you the apology your heart keeps waiting for? Can you still become whole? That is the question. And it is a hard one. Because deep down, many people do not just want healing. They want the person who hurt them to witness the healing. They want the glow up to be seen. They want the strength to be noticed. They want the silence to echo in the other person's mind. But the highest form of recovery is when your becoming no longer needs an audience. When you stop asking, do they see me now? And start asking, can I respect myself now? That is the shift. Silence becomes strongest when it stops being about them. When it becomes the place where you rebuild your relationship with yourself. Where you learn that pain does not have to become pursuit. That loneliness does not have to become surrender. That missing someone does not have to become self-abandonment. That is when silence becomes sacred. Not because it changes them. Because it changes you. 8. You are not your pain. At the center of this entire lesson is one Stoic truth. You are not your emotional state. You are the person who has a relationship with your emotional state. That means you are not the panic that rises when they stop replying. You are not the jealousy that appears when you imagine them with someone else. You are not the grief that hits you at night. You are not the urge to explain, chase, prove, fix, or be chosen again. You are the one observing all of it. And that distinction is everything. Because if you believe you are your pain, then every painful impulse feels like a command. If you believe you are your loneliness, you will obey loneliness. If you believe you are your anger, you will speak from anger. If you believe you are your fear, you will chase from fear. But when you understand that these are experiences moving through you, not masters ruling you, you gain space. And in that space, you gain choice. That choice may be small at first. Not texting for 1 hour. Then one night. Then one day. then 1 week. But every time you choose from values instead of emotional emergency, something in you becomes more solid. You begin to trust yourself. Not because you no longer hurt, but because you no longer become dangerous to yourself when you hurt. That is a rare strength. Many people are kind to themselves only when life is easy. But the real test is whether you can protect yourself when you are lonely, rejected, angry, or afraid. Can you stand beside yourself when someone else walks away? Can you refuse to humiliate your own heart for one more drop of attention? Can you feel the storm without becoming the storm? That is what the Stoics meant by freedom. Not the absence of pain. The ability to remain self-governed inside pain. 9. The strongest response belongs entirely to you. Every message sent from panic belongs partly to panic. Every explanation sent from desperation belongs partly to desperation. Every argument sent from humiliation belongs partly to humiliation. But silence, real silence, honest silence, disciplined silence, belongs entirely to you. It is the one response that does not depend on their understanding. It does not ask for permission. It does not wait for validation. It does not need applause. It simply says, "My dignity is still mine." And that matters. Because after a breakup, it can feel like the other person took something from you. They took the future you imagined. They took the rhythm of your days. They took the version of life you were preparing for. They may have taken your trust, your certainty, your softness. But they do not get to take your conduct. That remains yours. What you do next is yours. How you carry the pain is yours. Whether you turn heartbreak into begging or into becoming, that is yours. And this is where silence becomes more than silence. It becomes a line in the ground. Not a loud line. Not a dramatic line. Not a line drawn for them to notice. A private line. The kind of line a man draws when he finally understands that love should not require the destruction of his self-respect. The kind of line a person draws when they are tired of confusing emotional intensity with loyalty. The kind of line that says, "I can grieve you without chasing you. I can miss you without returning to what hurt me. I can love what we had without betraying what I need now." That is not weakness. That is the beginning of inner authority. 10. What silence is really building. So let's bring this together. Silence after a breakup is not about looking cold. It is not about manipulating the other person. It is not about pretending you are healed. It is not about winning some invisible game. Silence is powerful because it interrupts the old pattern. The pattern of explaining yourself to people who already know what they did. The pattern of turning pain into performance. The pattern of making your emotional stability depend on someone else's reply. The pattern of giving unlimited access to people who no longer deserve full access to your inner world. Real silence does 3 things. First, it protects your dignity. It prevents you from handing your most vulnerable emotions to someone who may not have the care, maturity, or responsibility to hold them properly. Second, it trains your nervous system. Every time you feel the urge to send the message and choose not to, you teach yourself that discomfort is survivable. You learn that you can feel pain without obeying pain. Third, it rebuilds your identity. You stop being the person waiting to be chosen. You become the person choosing how to carry yourself. And that is the deeper victory. Not that they miss you, but that you come back to yourself. One day, you may look back at the message you almost sent. The one you wrote with shaking hands. The one full of everything they never understood. The one that felt necessary at the time. And you may feel grateful that you kept it. Not because the feeling was wrong, but because that message belonged to your healing, not to their possession. You gave those words to yourself. You let them become reflection instead of exposure. You let them become strength instead of surrender. You let them become part of the person you were becoming. That is the quiet gift of Stoic silence. It does not erase the pain. It does not make the breakup easy. It does not magically remove the memories. But it gives you something far more valuable. It gives you proof that even when you were hurt, you did not abandon yourself. And in a world full of people who know how to leave, perform, replace, distract, and rewrite the story, becoming someone who can stand still in pain without losing dignity is rare. So if you are in that silence right now, do not mistake it for emptiness. Something is being built there. A calmer mind. A stronger spine. A cleaner relationship with yourself. A version of you that no longer needs to be understood by the person who chose not to stay. Let the silence work. Not on them. On you. And if this message found you at the right moment, write this in the comments. I will not let pain speak for me. Because that sentence is not for them. It is for the person you are becoming. Stay grounded. Stay whole. Stay unbreakable.